Hi, my name's Tom. I run brand advertising for AdColony across Asia Pacific, and we work with tons of brands, agencies, advertisers across Asia to deliver high quality video advertising. Our biggest challenge as an organization in Asia is delivering the right ads to the right people at the right time. It's a bit of a cliche, everybody says it, but that's what we're engaged in. And the foundation of doing that is actually data. We use data to deliver ads to the right people, so getting the right ads in front of the right people, but also we use data to inform the ads that we show those people in a dynamic way. So there are tons of variables that we're working with there as well. So delivering ads in different markets, so in China or Indonesia or Australia. And then also thinking about times that consumers want to engage with our ads for brands and marketers. So, the commute at lunchtime, whatever it is. And we use data to inform the way that we deliver ads across all of those different dimensions. At the core of every business is connecting with consumers. And we help businesses across Asia to do that using data. So that means collecting data against consumers, acquiring data so we can better understand them and match them with ads, businesses within our platform. We also use our data to help businesses understand their consumer challenges and understand how their businesses are deploying in the Asian market. So one of the things that we do is we look at what consumers are doing within apps, what they're doing when they're surfing on their mobile phones, maybe they're on their commute at lunchtime, sitting watching a video, looking at social media, messaging friends. We look at their behavior and we use that to understand what they're doing, what they're interested in, and how we can match them with brands and marketers. It's not just a kind of a nice fluffy consumer challenge about finding the right person at the right time. It's actually about finding people. There's a big challenge there, kind of things, terms like ad fraud, viewability, kind of super hot, buzzy kind of topics in marketing right now, and things that brands are rightly concerned about. So we use data to screen our platform to ensure that we're not delivering against, ad fraud. And we also use data to understand things like viewability. So to understand that an ad is actually on the screen and that a consumer has spent a reasonable amount of time with it, even to the extent that they've spent time with it with the sound on. Ad fraud is not a single issue. There are tons of different things that go on with ad fraud and lots of different techniques that the fraudsters have got. Our job is to overcome that kind of fraud, to identify it and to protect brands and marketers against it. And we do that using data, using sophisticated data gathering techniques and smart algorithms that we deploy to crunch that data and understand where the fraud's coming from and block it from our platform. When we think about data at AdColony, we think about it across three key pillars. So those pillars are the apps that people are looking at and the apps they have on their phone. We think about it in terms of the content that they're consuming. So that's what they're doing maybe when they're within an app, or what they're doing when they're across the wider kind of internet, across the wider mobile web. And then the third kind of pillar is location. So we collect a lot of location information. So that's GPS data. So we're tracking you as you're moving around Singapore, moving around China, looking at the locations that you're traveling to and using that to understand what you're interested in. So there's always a trade-off in data between, us acquiring and using data and, what consumers get back. And we like to think that by providing more relevant experiences, and putting interesting things in front of consumers, that we're giving them what they want. And that's certainly, the way that we work with brands and marketers. But there's a trade-off there in that we're using consumer data to do that. And you look at kind of what's gone on recently with Facebook, with Cambridge Analytica, and it's clear that that trade-off isn't always understood by consumers, and that in the worst cases and with bad actors, it isn't always for the best interests of consumers. Of course, working in the data industry, we're always steering clear of personally identifiable information. So I think, the depths of what Facebook and Cambridge Analytica are doing is real worst case scenario stuff. We deal with much more kind of consumer interest and in a much more sensitive way. And I think that's a really big learning for brands, is being sensitive in the way that they talk to consumers, sensitive in the way that they use consumer data. So it's not only us and brands that are working to kind of safeguard consumers and data, it's also the regulators. And regulators are taking quite a proactive approach at the moment towards consumer data. We can see this with the GDPR regulation that's coming out in Europe, with e-privacy, which is kind of GDPR on steroids. So, these are really positive steps that the entire industry is taking with the regulators in order to properly protect and use consumer data in a much more sensitive way, and something that we really support. It's absolutely the core of, any decent brand and marketer's DNA in how they're using data. GDPR is still relevant here in Asia, even though it's EU legislation. It applies to any European Union citizen wherever they are in the world. Unless you can identify within your data EU citizens and non-EU citizens accurately, then you will have to assume that all of your data may contain EU citizens, and therefore you've got to apply GDPR and in future e-privacy. The crux of GDPR and e-privacy, which, as I already said, it's GDPR on steroids, is asking consumers permission to use your data. So brands are going to have a direct relationship with consumers and say, please, Mr. Consumer, is it all right for me to use your data to talk to you? And all of the mediators in the process, so agencies, ad tech platforms, all of the players in the ad tech ecosystem are also going to have that conversation with consumers. So it's not just about giving consumers the opportunity to opt in. They obviously also have the opportunity to opt out of communications. So GDPR is something that's happening in the future, but it's almost with us. It's rolling out very soon. Blockchain is something that for many of you will seem, very much in the future, but actually this is a real area where blockchain technology can impact the way that businesses are operating. So GDPR is about, permission-based interaction between consumers and brands, consumers and marketers. That can very easily be logged and mediated using the blockchain. And there are lots of businesses already working on this, already working on consumers actually taking back control of their data. Brands really need to keep an open mind in terms of how they're communicating with consumers. With new regulation, GDPR, opportunities around blockchain, data is evolving, and the way that brands talk to consumers is really evolving. It's an incredibly complex world that we're looking at, but data is going to be a huge part of it. With blockchain coming in, that just makes it even more exciting, and I'm incredibly excited to be part of it.